myself, Faiz Sultana Nasser. I'm from Itanagar MPS School, Goregaon West. Okay. Today we will be revising history, chapter number 2, historiography, Indian tradition. In the last chapter, we have revised. Okay, the last chapter was historiography, development in the West. We have seen like what is historiography. Okay, historiography is the writing of history. But how? How is history written? It is written in a critical historical narrative, okay, in a critical manner by analyzing it, by examining it, okay. So what is historiography? The writing of a critical historical narrative is known as historiography. So in the last lecture we have seen historiography development in the West, like how western uh, western scholars like Ren Descartes and all contributed in development of historiography in the West. But now in this chapter we will be studying historiography, Indian tradition. Okay. So we learned about the Western tradition of historiography in the last lesson. In this lesson, we will know about the historiography. Okay, how Indian it is divided into ancient, medieval, and modern in three parts. Students, mute everyone. Lot of noise is coming. Okay. So in Indian tradition, historiography is divided into three parts. That is ancient, medieval, and modern. So one by one, we will see each. First, we will see historiography in the ancient period. Okay. Now, in the ancient period in India, memories of the great deeds. Great deeds means stories of war, stories of ancestors and mythological lore. Also, memories of social transitions. Social transitions means social changes. Okay, were preserved with the help of oral recitals. Okay, so in the beginning, but history was passed from generation to generation, right? In the last lesson we have learned, but how in the ancient period how it was passed. There was no like written sources and also by oral sources. Okay, by the help of oral means mouth. Okay, by reciting from mouth, history was passed. So it was preserved in the form of great deeds. Like deeds mean stories. Okay, great deeds of ancestors, mythological lore, and memories of social transitions were preserved with the help of oral recitals. The inscriptions. Now, inscriptions means carving. Okay, carving on the rock or wall. Okay, or metal. So the inscriptions on the Harappan seals and other artifacts confirm that Indians had mastered the art of writing. Mastered the art of writing means India started writing or became expert. Okay, mastered the art of writing means they have become expert in writing as early as the third millennium BCE. Third millennium means 3000 years ago. Okay, like from 3000 years ago, India mastered the art of writing, or perhaps before that, or maybe before third millennium. However, the Harappan script is not yet successfully deciphered. Deciphered means it's not decoded till now. Okay, so the earliest known written documents of historical nature found in India are in the form of inscriptions, that is carving of rocks, carving of pillars, okay, carving of seals. In the picture you can see it's a seal, something is carved on it, okay, animal shapes like this or trees shape. You can see the picture carefully. Okay, so these pictures are dated to the 3rd century BCE, or these inscriptions are dated to the 3rd century. That is Emperor Ashoka's Maurya's time. 3rd century means 300 years ago. So 300 years ago means at the time of Ashok Maurya's. Okay, so his edicts are inscribed means carved on natural rocks and stone pillars. Just check. Okay. So from the first century CE, inscriptions begin to occur on coins. Now, where you can find the inscriptions on coins, metal images, sculptures. Sculptures mean statues, okay, and also on copper plates. In a history textbook, also, you have seen the pictures of these copper plates, okay, coins, inscribed coins, statues, and all. They provide important historical information. Okay, from these things, we get the knowledge of history, okay, or some information from that coins, metals, okay. We get to know about the dates of various kings, okay, by looking the coin, something is written on that, so we come to know about the date, okay, date or name, dynasty, genealogy, okay. Genealogy is lineage, that is study of families, territorial extent and administration of various empires and kingdoms, and also the political events, what was happening, social organization, and climate, famines, okay, of that time. So these things we come to know through the inscriptions. Okay, you can see some tree or some picture is there on the inscription. It may show us the climate or famine. Excuse me. Okay. The ancient Indian literature, including the epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, Puranas, Jain and Buddhist texts, historical accounts by Indian authors, and also travelogues by foreign travelers are important sources of history. Okay, from these all are the sources of history. Okay, from epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puran, Jain, Buddhist texts, these all are accounts of Indian authors. Indian historical writings are written by Indian authors, okay, and travelogues also. Now, what is travelogue? If a foreign traveler comes to India, okay, so he will visit the India, he will write about it, okay. Whatever writings written by the foreigner or a traveler is called as travelogues. They write in detail about their society, about the culture of the country, or about the religion, about the climate, everything they will give us a detailed in a travelogue, okay. So these all are important sources, epics, texts, travelogues, these all are important sources of history. Okay. Now, writing of biographies, okay, what are biographies, okay, story about the some person, okay. So writing of biographies of kings and dynastic histories mark an important step in the Indian historiography. Now, how historiography, what writings were written in historiography, like stories about the king, stories about their dynasty, about the king's dynasty, okay. Now we will see one example, that is Harshcharit, written by written in the 7th century CE by Banabhatta. Is king's is King Harsha's biography. It portrays it portrays a realistic picture of the social, economic, political, religious during the king's time. Okay, now during that king's time, what was the real picture? What was the society? How was the economic, like how financial condition? Okay, and what was the earning? What was the sources of earning? Political, religious, and cultural life. All these are portrayed in the in that biography. Okay. Now next, historiography in the medieval past. These all we have studied about the ancient period. Now we will move towards the medieval period. Historiography in the medieval period. So before going to the medieval period, I will just recap what was the ancient period. In the ancient period, the sources were like in First, it was oral sources, oral recitals, okay, and like stories or folk mythological lore, okay, and then it was inscriptions on coins, metals, statues or sculptures or copper plates. Then there was also history was recorded in the texts of historical authors of epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata, Puran, okay, and no, foreigner travelogues by foreigners, okay. So this was all about ancient history. Now we will move towards historiography in the medieval period, writings of the medieval period, okay. The style of writing Raj Tarangini, the history of Kashmir by Kalhana in the 12th century CE is quite close to the concept of modern historiography. Okay, so Raj Tarangini, the history of Kashmir, it is written very close to the concept of modern historiography. The concept of modern historiography can be seen in this book, Raj Tarangini. Okay, so Kalhana himself says that he wrote this text after critically examining. Okay, now we have learned this word critically examining in the first chapter only, like how we write history by critically, only after critically examining various sources, okay, like inscriptions, coins, remains of ancient monuments, dynastic records, and local traditions. Okay, after examining these all things, Kalhana says that he has written history of Kashmir. In the medieval India and historians in the medieval India, the historians in the courts of Muslim rulers were influenced by Arabic and Persian historiography. Now you all must be knowing Arabic language. Okay. Now what is Persian? Persia was now Persia is Iran. Okay. Before it was known as Persia in the medieval period. Okay, and that language was known as Persian. Okay. So Muslim rulers, they all were influenced by Arabic and Persian language. Among them, Ziauddin Barani holds an important place in Tariq Firoz Shahi, a book written by him. Okay, Ziauddin Barani, he wrote a book, Tariq Firoz Shahi. He has stated the purpose of historiography. Now, according to him, uh, how to write historiography or history, we will see. Okay, his concept of writing we will see now. According to him, the historian's duty is not limited only to to record to the recording of the ruler's valor and policies of welfare, but he should also write about the ruler's failings and incorrect policies. Okay, so Barani, okay, he said, or he believed that when you are writing history of a ruler, of a king, you will not write only his good things, you should write all his failures also. Okay, both the things you should write, all his good deeds, okay, and whatever is incorrect policies or failures are there. Barani further says that a historian should also take into consideration the impact of the teachings of the wise. Okay, now in that kingdom, if there are the learned, the saints, wise people are there, also what is the impact of the on the cultural life of the people, that should also be considered while writing history. So thus Barani expanded the scope of historiography. Okay, so this was in the medieval period, like some scholars or historians, their concept of writing, we can see the different concepts of writing. So this was the Barani's concept of writing, including both the things, rulers good things also and failures also. Now for the historians in the Mughal courts, praising the emperors and exhibition of loyalty became more important. The custom of adding suitable poetic quotes and beautiful pictures was also introduced. In a movie or somewhere in the stories or in TV serials which shows about historical serials, you have seen that there is a king's court and there are the courtiers who um, who praises the king with some poetic quotes. Okay, so these things were introduced at that time. Now Babur, all of you know that the Babur, the founder of the Mughal Empire, wrote an autobiography. Now, what is the meaning of autobiography? In the last slide, we have seen biography. Okay. In the last slide, we have seen biography. Biography means a story of somebody else. Okay, like some person. It may be a ruler. It may be a king or a. Nowadays, you know that biography of sport persons. Okay, movies are coming. Now, what is autobiography? Autobiography means writing for yourself. You are writing your own autobiography. So Babur, the founder of the Mughal Empire, wrote an autobiography, wrote his about himself only, entitled. The name of the book is Tuzuke Babari. Okay, it contains the description of the battles fought by him. Whatever battles were fought by him, he wrote about it. He described about it. Babur also recorded his minute observations of various regions and cities traveled by him. Okay, wherever he traveled, he whatever his observations were there about the region, about the cities traveled by him, included the local people, economy of that region, customs, and the flora. Flora means plants. You have come across these words in science also. Flora and fauna, plants, animals. Okay, so in Tuzuke Babari, Babur wrote about himself and about the region he visited, he traveled, okay, about the place, economy, customs, plants, and etc. Next, Abu Fazl's Akbarnama is very important from the viewpoint of critical historiography. Okay, Abu Fazl, he wrote Akbarnama, it's about Akbar, and it's very important from the viewpoint of critical historiography, means after only examining this critically, only this history is written, or his historiography is written. His method of collecting authentic historical document. Okay, now historical method is collecting historical documents and scrutinizing it. So same way Abu Fazl, what he did, his method of collecting authentic historical documents and their scrutiny is looked upon as devoid of bias and hence realistic. Okay, by confirming it, by scrutinizing it. Okay, after analysis, he writes. So it looks like realistic. He writes real only. Bakhar. In the picture, you can see it is written in Marathi. Bhausahebanchi Bakhar. Okay. So it's Bakhar is Marathi document. Bakhar is an important type of historical documents of medieval times. It contains eulogies of the heroes and stories of historic events, battles, life of great men. So it's written about a king, okay, about a ruler, what his uh, bravery, okay, his great deeds, everything is included in this Bakhar. Marathi Bhakhars are of various types. Okay, Sabhasad Bhakhar was written by Krishnaji Anand Sabhasad during the reign of Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj. It is an important Bakhar for getting information about the rule of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Okay, if you read this Bakhar, you get the information about the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Okay, because stories of the kings is written in this Bakhar. Bahusahebanchi Bhakhar. Okay, now in this Bakhar, it describes the Battle of Panipat. You read this, you will get to know about the Battle of Panipat. You'll get the information about Battle of Panipat. Another bakar entitled Pani Patachi Bakar is also about the same event. Holkaranchi Kaifiyat provides information about Holkars. And their contribution to the Maratha rule. Bakars can be divided into various types such as biographies of kings, dynastic history, descriptions of events, history of a sect, autobiographies regarding grievance raised on the mythologies, and state administration by a king. So this was all about the medieval period. See, in the medieval period, before going to modern period, I'll just take a recap of the medieval period. In the medieval period, you have seen authors, writers, they have written about the king, okay, and their writing was critically or analyzed after examining, okay, and after confirming they have written. So it was shown that medieval history, historiography was done by historical research, okay, after confirming and after critically analyzing they have written. We have seen that Ziauddin Badani wrote Tariq Feroz Shahi. Then Babar wrote his own autobiography, Tuzuk-e Babari. Then Abu Fazl's Akbarnama we have seen, and Bakar, Marathi Bakhars we have seen. It is the stories in that we can see the stories about the kings, about their battles, which they have fought various battles. Okay, many Bakhars we have seen, such as Bhau Sahibanchi Bakar, Panipatachi Bakar, Holkaranchi Kaifiyat, etc. and etc. Now, this was all about medieval period. We will move towards modern period, historiography in the modern period. Up till now, we have seen historiography in the ancient period, historiography in the medieval period. Third part is historiography in the modern period. So in the 20th century, the Indian archaeological exploration and research started under the British rule. A number of ancient sites were excavated. Okay. So in the 20th century, the Indian archaeological exploration and research started under the British rule. A number of ancient sites were excavated under the supervision of Sir Alexander Cunningham, the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India. So who was the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey in India? Okay, so the answer is Sir Alexander Cunningham was the first Director General of the Archaeological Survey of India. This is your first fill in the blank. Okay, answer of the first fill in the blank is Sir Alexander Cunningham. Okay, so he started archaeological exploration and research, okay, under the British rule. Okay, now what they have excavated, he chose mainly the sites mentioned in the Buddhist text for this purpose. Okay, before excavation, what he did, he has gone through some texts. Those were Buddhist texts. So he thought that after excavating these sites, we will get something about about that period. Okay, Harappan civilization was discovered during the tenure of Sir John Marshall. Okay, after excavation, we got Harappan civilization. So the excavation was done under the tenure of Sir John Marshall. Because of this discovery, the antiquity of Indian history could be traced to third millennium, that is 3,000 years ago. Many British officials in India wrote about Indian history. Their writings display strong influence of the colonial policies of the British. Okay, so all of us know that India was under British rule, right? But Britishers, they have also written about Indian history. The writing display a strong influence of the colonial policies. Okay, about what are the colonial policies? They have written only that only. 3 volumes of the history of British India, written by James Mill, were published in 1817. This was the first book on Indian history written by a British historian. Okay, written by a British historian. This was the first book of Indian history. 3 volumes of the history of British India. It clearly reflects an absence of objective perspective and prejudice and various aspects of the Indian culture. So they have not written more about Indian culture, only about colonial British policies they have written. Okay. The History of India, written by Mount Stuart Elphinstone, Governor of Bombay, was published in 1844. Means by British historians, something was missing. Okay, some part they have missed out, or we can say that it was cultural of India. It was lacking in that. Okay. The period of Maratha Empire is very important in the Indian history. Grand Duff's name stands out among the British officers. What's the name of the British officer, Grand Duff? Name stands out among the British officers who wrote about Maratha history. This British officer, Grand Duff, wrote about Maratha history. He wrote the book entitled A History of the Marathas. Okay, his book's name was A History of the Marathas. This book is published in 3 volumes. Uh, Grand Duff's book History of Maratha was published in 3 volumes. 3 volumes means 3 parts. Okay, in 3 parts or in 3 volumes he has published. Excuse me. Similarly, tendency is witnessed in Colonel Todd's writing about Rajasthan history. Okay, means their writing concept was same. Britishers' writing concept was same. Like they have written mostly about colonial part. Okay, the 2 volumes written by William Wilson Hunter on Indian history shows a somewhat important treatment of the subject. Neelkant Janardhan Kirtane and Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade were 2 Indian historians who took upon the task of exposing the limitations of Grant Duff's writing. As I said, these British officers, those or British historians, those who have written about Indian history, they have written history in limited. Okay, so Neelkant Janardhan Kirtane and Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade. Okay, these 2 Indian historians, they took task of exposing the limitations of Grand Duff's writing. Okay. Now we'll come to the next part, that is Indian historiography, various ideological frameworks. Okay. So the first one is colonial historiography. The early scholars who studied and wrote Indian history were mainly British officers and Christian missionaries. Okay, so early in the beginning, those scholars were there, the Britishers only. Okay, they have studied and wrote Indian history, and some were Christian missionaries. Their prejudice is clearly reflected in the way some of them have ridiculed Indian culture. Okay, like something was missing when they have written Indian history, so they have missed out or they have lacked something in writing, like about Indian culture. That means they have reduced Indian culture. Their writings were used to justify the colonial British rule. Only their rule they have justified. The colonial rule only, this thing they have justified in their writings. the 5 volumes of Cambridge history. 5 volumes means 5 parts of Cambridge history of India, published during 1922 to 1937 CE, are distinct examples of colonial historiography. Okay, so this was of colonial historiography. Only like in Indian history, the Britishers, those who were writing Indian history, they have emphasized on their British colonial role or colonial writing only in the history of India. History of India. Okay, they have reduced writing of Indian culture. They have not included much in the Indian culture in their writings. Okay, so we'll go to next historiography. That is Orientalist historiography. Now we will see what is Orientalist historiography. Many European scholars felt curious about civilizations and countries of the East. Now, from European, now these scholars, they felt curious, like what are the civilization, what are the cultures in the East countries? Okay, in the Eastern countries, they were curious to know more about this. So some of those scholars felt admiration and respect for them. These scholars were known as Orientalists. Okay, the scholars who felt admiration and respect for them is known as Orientalist. Knowing curious, okay, felt curious about civilization and countries of the East. Some of those scholars felt admiration and respect for them. These scholars were known as Orientalist. So what did they do? The Orientalist studied the similarities between Sanskrit and some of the European languages. Okay, so these Orientalists were from Europe. So they have studied the similarity. Similarity means same thing. What is the same thing between Sanskrit language and European language? They have studied studied the similarities between both the languages. They focused more on Vedic tradition and Sanskrit literature. Their studies resulted into formulating the nation of an ancient language that could be the mother of all Indo-European languages. In 1784, Sir William Jones founded Asiatic History Society in Kolkata. It opened the doors for research in ancient Indian literature and history. So, among the Orientalist scholars, Frederick Max Muller deserves a special mention. Frederick Max Muller is the Orientalist scholar. He deserves a special mention. Okay. In his opinion, Sanskrit was the most ancient language of the Indo-European languages. Okay. Now, Max Muller's opinion was that Sanskrit is the most ancient language. He was deeply interested in Sanskrit literature. Muller was very interested in Sanskrit literature. He first translated the Sanskrit text of Hitopadesh in German language. Okay, this is the second fill in the blank. The answer is Frederick Max Muller translated the Sanskrit text of Hitopadesh in German language. Okay. He was deeply interested in Sanskrit language. He has done the translation of Sanskrit text, that is Hitopadesh, and in his own language, that is German language. He was the editor of 50 volumes of the sacred books of the East. He also compiled Rig Veda, which has been published in the 6 volumes. Okay, now Rig Veda, it was published in 6 volumes, means 6 parts. So he have done compilation, means he have gathered all 6 parts in one book only, and he translated Rig Veda in German. So this was all about Frederick Max Muller. Orientalist historiography. Now we will see nationalistic historiography. Up till now we have seen colonial historiography, Orientalist historiography, and this last one is nationalistic historiography. The writings of Indian historians who were trained in the British educational system shown an inclination to restore the pride in the ancient glory of India and the self-esteem of the Indian readers. Okay, now the writers, okay, the Indian historians, they were educated in British educational system. Okay, they were trained in British educational system, but they have restored the pride of the ancient glory of India. Okay, and restore means they have written the pride of ancient glory of India and self-esteem of the Indian readers. Means they have written about the Indian culture, whatever missed out by the Britishers, they have not written. So these Indian historians have included. Their writings are known as nationalistic historiography. Okay, so what is nationalistic historiography? To restore the pride in the ancient glory of India and the self-esteem of the Indian readers, their writings are known as nationalistic historiography. Nationalistic writings in Maharashtra were inspired by Vishnu Shastri Chiplunkar. He criticized the prejudiced history of ancient India written by British officers. So Vishnu Shastri criticized the history written by the British officers. Okay. The nationalistic historians tried to seek the golden era of the Indian history, like whatever was the golden era of Indian history, they wanted to bring it, okay, in front of everyone. They are at times blamed for ignoring the critical analysis of the historical truth. So Mahadev Govind Ranade, Ramkrishna Gopal, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, Rajendra Lal Mishra, Ramesh Chandra Majumdar, Kashi Prasad, Radha Kumud Mukherjee, Bhagwan Lal Indraji, Vasudev Vishnu Mirashi, and Anand Sudashiv Altekar are the names of some renowned scholars among the nationalist historians. Rajwade is well known for his writings in Marathi on varied subjects like history, linguistics, etymology, grammar, etc. Now, what is etymology? Etymology is the study of the origin of historical words. Okay, or you can say investigation of historical words. This is known as etymology. He was of the firm opinion that we should write our own history. Means V.K. Rajwade. His opinion was like we can write our own history. He compiled and edited 20 volumes of Marathianche Itihasachi Sadhane. Okay. Sadhane. He wrote very scholarly prefaces to each of the 22 volumes. He stated history is the all-inclusive image of the past societies. Okay, history is all about the past. It does not include only the stories of political images, conspiracies, and wars for seizing power. He insisted that history should be written only using the authentic documentary source. Okay, this is the method of historical research by using only authentic documentary source. The nationalistic historiography helped in the triggering of the independence movement of the Indian people against the British rule. So, after writing national history, now India, the people of India want in them independence triggered. Okay, the feeling of independence triggered with the help of nationalistic historiography. Then, movement of the Indian people against British rule started. Now you can see in this book, The Indian War of Independence. Okay, in this aspect book, The Indian War of Independence, 1857, written by Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, is of great importance. He has written the book The Indian War of Independence in 1857. So it was of great importance. The national historiography provided a momentum to the writing of the regional histories, to writing about the history of a particular region. Okay, nationalists started writing history about the region also. As a result, the attention of historians was drawn to the geographic conditions and history of South Indian regions. Historiography in the post-independence era. Okay, post-independence means before. Historiography in the post-independence era. Now, along with the writing dynastic histories, the cultural, social, economic histories were also being written. Scholars of the post-independence era began to feel the need of writing histories of various communities, sciences, economics, systems, political ideologies, cultural aspects, etc. Okay. So now the ideas. Okay. So historian feel that these things, history should be written with these aspects also: science, economic, political, cultural aspect. The historiography of this era has been influenced mainly by three ideological schools: Marxist history, subaltern history, and feminist history. Okay. So one by one we will see. First we will see Marxist history, then subaltern history, then feminist history. Uh, I think I should take this in next lecture. Just we will have the recap. The time is up. Uh, in tomorrow's lecture, we will be seeing historiography in the post-independence era. Post-independence era means after independence. Okay, so we will be studying about three history. One is Marxist history, second is subaltern history, and third is feminist history. Okay, we will just look back what we have done.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Wind up the lecture.
Yeah, ma'am. Remaining part I'll continue in tomorrow's lecture. Time is up, no? Achha. Okay, students. So the remaining part of the lesson, half part of the lesson is remaining. We will continue